Hello world, here I am. This is a video about my vinyl solo Beatles collection. I haven't actually done anything really about my solo Beatles stuff on YouTube, so this is a YouTube first. Okay, right, so I need to say that I haven't got tons of Beatles solo stuff, only the stuff that really interests me. For example, I haven't got a load of Paul McCartney stuff throughout the 80s and 90s and noughties. I've got other stuff on CD rather than vinyl, just because. And yeah, so this is not going to be a huge thing, but I have got some rather nice little goodies tucked away in here that perhaps you might be interested in seeing. Okay, most of this stuff you can just sort of find in second-hand record stores and stuff like that, and it's not really majorly rare or expensive, but there are one or two curiosities, as I have just said. Okay, so make no further ado. Okay, we're going to start off first of all with Paul McCartney. Okay, this is Pipes of Peace. Okay, I first heard this when it came out. I can remember all the interviews and stuff like that Paul McCartney did to promote it, and it is by and large quite a good album. Obviously Pipes of Peace is the standout track on here, but there are some other pretty good ones on here. We have Say Say Say, which is the duet with Michael Jackson. What other? So Bad's good. Through Our Love is good. But essentially, basically, it's Paul McCartney. It's Paul McCartney kind of fodder, as it were. It's... yeah, I mean, what's good on there is fantastic, but what isn't is, you know... There's a song called The Man on here, which is also another duet with Michael Jackson, which is also quite good as well. But yeah, there's some pap on here as well. That's the thing with Paul McCartney. You have to take his good stuff and recognise that it is pure genius, and you know, just understand that he has to indulge himself with naff stuff as well. Okay, for the record, and I've got it on CD actually, so not for the record, but anyway, my favourite Paul McCartney album, I've got two actually. One is from around about 2005. Having said that, I wasn't really all that interested in Paul McCartney for you know, throughout all the later years and whatnot. Chaos and Creation in the Backyard is an absolutely stunner of an album. I think every track there is actually, you know, it's gold, it's brilliant. Okay, and also Tug of War, which I don't have on vinyl. Again, I have on CD. That was the one that came out before Pipes of Peace. So the next piece of Paul McCartney that I've got to show on vinyl is McCartney 2. Yeah, I got this album when I was about 12 or something like that, and I remember exactly where I was when I bought it. And yeah, I quite liked it as a kid, but as an adult sort of playing this again, I really don't like it. It's bizarre. Again, it's got, you know, one or two sort of passable tracks. Coming Up's very good. The Summer's Day song I like, and I like One of These Days, but the rest of it is just, you know, temporary secretary. Ooh, no, just no. Just no, it really isn't Paul McCartney at his very best. The reason why it's called McCartney 2 is because Paul's first solo album after the Beatles was called McCartney, and it was completely stripped down in terms of gear and stuff like that. Basically, it was, we play it, if we like it we keep it, otherwise we erase it. Okay, there's no mixing console involved. It was just straight onto tape, and that was the same kind of philosophy that was embraced with this album. But it's just not a good album. The songs just really are not good. Okay, so yeah. Having said that, this album here is another one that is pure gold dust. I've done a review of this on my channel, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but it's Wings Over America from their live tours. Someone has highly illegally put this on YouTube, or put the DVD version of this on YouTube. They're very slightly different. I don't necessarily think that for every single song they went to exactly the same piece of concert footage for it. So yeah, there are differences, but by and large, this is, you know, this was a mega tour, you know. It will go down in history, really, as, you know, one of the best rock tours ever, I think. And yeah, this is a triple vinyl set, okay, or double CD set. I've got it on CD as well. And yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant from first to last. There really isn't a duff number in here, and he does play a few Beatles numbers in a little. They have like a little acoustic kind of breakdown in the middle of the show, as it were, and yeah. But that's again, that is Paul at his best. Okay, this is Wings at the Speed of Sound from 1976. I used to love this album. Again, as a child, I loved it. You know, I was 12 or something like that. I loved it. Sorry, I'm having a bad hair day. But yeah, it's got, you know, again, you know, songs that I remember from being about 6 or 7 and hearing on the radio. Things like Silly Love Songs, Let 'Em In, which is really good. What's on here is also pretty good. I like Beware My Love. I like Time to Hide, which was a Denny Laine song. I think Denny Laine, by this time, Denny Laine used to be in a group called the Moody Blues, and he teamed up with Paul McCartney shortly after the Beatles split up. And as you can see, we're working our way backwards here, by the way. And yeah, I think because of his standing, as it were, he had to have, you know, a nice slice of the Wings pie, basically. So yeah, there are a few Denny Laine songs on here. Okay, there's even a song called Wino Junko, which is by Jimmy McCulloch. Jimmy McCulloch is... where is he? That one there. Okay. He actually died of a drug overdose very shortly after this album and the Wings Over America tour. It's about 1977, something like that, he died. But yeah, so that's a bit sad, really. But yeah, that's actually quite a good song as well. But there's rubbish on here too. Cook of the House, anybody? No. That's Linda McCartney. You know, yes, I eat Linda McCartney's vegetarian food, but I don't really want to hear her singing about Cook of the House. Okay. Yeah, but quite a reasonably good album from Paul there. Venus and Mars, this is the year before, 75. Okay. Again, this is a gatefold sleeve. Okay, and this album has also got some pretty good songs on it, but what I will say is that the pretty good songs work better live than they do in the studio. And I've mentioned this before. The beginning of Wings Over America starts out with Venus and Mars going straight into Rock Show, as it does here. Okay, except it sounds a whole lot better live. Okay, it's not bad, just not brilliant. It needs that energy. It needs a screaming audience, sort of clapping along and dancing away and cheering and that kind of thing. But yeah. What else is good on here? Magneto Entertainium Man, I think, is fantastic. Listen to What the Man Said. Okay, yes, Tug of War and Chaos and Creation are brilliant albums from start to finish, absolute gold dust. But Listen to What the Man Said, I think, just because of its sheer joy, I think is probably my favourite Paul McCartney song. It's absolutely brilliant. Magneto Entertainium Man, I mentioned, it's good. You Gave Me the Answers, okay, a bit When I'm 64-ish, or even Honey Pie-ish. But there you go. Venus and Mars. Right, next we move on to John Lennon. Okay. Right, John Lennon basically used to share a lot of his albums with Yoko. Okay, there were financial reasons for that. Basically, as I've mentioned before, when the Beatles split up, the money side of things was just in a complete tangle, and for some bizarre reason, up until about 1975, there was this kind of deal whereby if John released an album, then Paul, George and Ringo each got a specific share of the profits. Okay, and it was the same with all the other four. Okay, so it was in their best interests for them all to have sort of mega selling albums. Okay, and so although this album wasn't made under that contract at all, the John and Yoko premise that from where it started is most definitely, and also giving, like, Paul and Linda had like song credits as like a partnership, and John Lennon and Yoko Ono also were credited for writing a lot of songs that you would think of as being John Lennon. For example, Happy Christmas, War is Over is actually a John and Yoko composition, for example. Okay, and it's purely down to this financial deal whereby if Yoko was credited, then that would mean that money would be theirs and not have to be shared out. So there you go. Here's the inner sleeve of this. This is a posthumous album. Okay, basically released 3 or 4 years after he died. What are we saying here? 1984. So 4 years after he was killed, this album came out. And again, I haven't listened to this in absolutely ages. I do like Yoko Ono, and I like her contributions to the albums. So yes, pretty good. It's got the main hit single from here was Nobody Told Me. Okay, and Yoko and Sean actually made a promotional visit to Liverpool to promote this thing, so I can remember it all like it was yesterday, actually. This is the John Lennon collection. This was not mine, this was somebody else's, and somehow or other it ended up in my collection here. It's absolutely knackered. I wouldn't even dream of trying to play this. It really is knackered beyond belief, okay? But I've got it just because I've got it, okay? And if you just want the best of John's solo material, you don't have to look much further than this album, actually, okay? Made pretty much in the aftermath after his death, or compiled pretty much in the aftermath after his death. It is brilliant. It's absolutely lovely. And when you get to, because it starts it's pretty chronological. Not exactly, but it's pretty chronological. So that by the time you get to the end of side 2, you're on to his later songs. And Beautiful Boy, Darling Boy, which he wrote for Sean, is absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you're not crying by that time, you're not listening. Okay, and your Heart is Made of Stone. Oh, I've got a couple of these. Double Fantasy and Double Fantasy. One's knackered and one's not quite so. But yeah, again, this is another John and Yoko collaboration album. This was the album that he was promoting at the time of his death. And yeah, it's an absolute stunner. Absolute stunner, okay? I don't think everything about John and Yoko's relationship was perfect. I think there were niggles and resentments, and I think they, although yes, we've got Just Like Starting Over, that is presumably, I would say, the way that a couple would kind of like want to reinvigorate their relationship because it's been a bit crap. Okay, and I think there are other songs like I'm Losing You on here which tell a bit more of the story, really. It wasn't, oh, he's so sweet and settled down with Yoko and it's all about the lovely time that he's having. He's not. Okay, there's tension. There has to be tension in music. If there isn't, it just becomes saccharine, and that's where Paul McCartney kind of, that's where Paul McCartney's worst music comes from. Okay, when it is just purely Paul being sweet and nice and allowing Linda to sing Cook of the House, then it just gets and yeah, it's horrendous. It must have the tension. Okay, so really, I think this is just about John and Yoko trying to make the best of their relationship, really, because it had gone a bit sour. We knew from the early 70s when Yoko actually told John to get lost, basically, and set him up with her secretary, May Pang. And off he went, and basically, had this fling with May Pang, and went a bit heavily on the old rock and roll poison, rock and roll mouthwash, and so yeah, this is a bittersweet album, but it's lovely. Okay, now a lot of the other John stuff I've got on CD. Okay, my favourite John Lennon album is Walls and Bridges, which I have on CD. I don't have on vinyl, it's a shame. But I do have Mind Games on vinyl. This is from the year before, because as I said, we're working backwards here. Okay, Mind Games is a 1973 album, and again, this album got a bit of a panning. It's very underrated. It's a brilliant album. It's absolutely brilliant from start to finish. Okay, I can just about read the song list here, but Mind Games itself is a brilliant track, and it's got this kind of mantra going around it: bow, 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 and it just wants to carry on like that, and those kind of loops really build up tension. Okay, he knew how to write songs, did John. Tight As, basically about money, I think. I see Masen, which means I'm sorry. One Day at a Time, Bring on the Lucy, Free the People. They did something a bit bizarre. They invented this land called Newtopia, which was basically, a land of peace and harmony. And this Bring on the Lucy was like the kind of anthem, and it's got Free the People in brackets, Frida as in Freda, a bit kind of like Frida from ABBA, but actually it's obviously Free the People, and it's John and his nonsense words again. Okay, but we do have the Utopian National Anthem, which is 3 seconds of silence on the end of side 1 here, which again, you know, for those of you who understand why, you know, it's an absolute genius, an absolute, you know, complete piece of genius there. Okay, I think Donald Trump should listen to it and perhaps shut up for 3 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so what else have we got here? Intuition, which is brilliant. Out the Blue, Only People, I Know, and You Are Here, and Meat City. And it's a splendid album. In fact, actually, after this, I might just play this one. It's going to go over on there. Okay, another album that gets a panning is this one, Sometime in New York City. But I actually like John the Politico, regardless of whether or not I necessarily agree with all his opinions. There was some pretty dangerous stuff going on here, and it's kind of arranged a bit like a newspaper. And this is a John and Yoko collaboration again. Okay, here's the Plastic Ono Band. And there they are, being peaceniks and rebels there. Okay, but yeah, Luck of the Irish is good. New York City's good. Born in a Prison by Yoko is brilliant. Attic Estate, fantastic. You know, real rock and roll music here. Okay, but for me, Sisters Oh Sisters, another Yoko song, is brilliant. But the real standout track for me is Woman is the Nigger of the World. Okay, it's in a slightly extended version here. If you've got Shaved Fish, or no, it's not on the Lennon collection, I don't think. But if you've got Shaved Fish, there's an edited version on there. But I really think that these words just need to be read aloud, actually. And do you know what? I'm going to. Okay, just because I feel like it. Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she is. Think about it. Woman is the nigger of the world. Think about it. Do something about it. We make her paint her face and dance. If she won't be a slave, we say that she don't love us. If she's real, we say she's trying to be a man. While putting her down, we pretend that she's above us. Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she is. If you don't believe me, take a look at the one you're with. Woman is the slave of the slaves. Ah, yeah, better scream about it. We make her bear and raise our children, and then we leave her flat for being a fat old mother hen. We tell her home is the only place she should be, then we complain that she's too unworldly to be our friend. Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she is. If you don't believe me, take a look at the one you're with. Woman is the slave to the slaves. Yeah, think about it. We insult her every day on TV and wonder why she has no guts or confidence. When she's young, we kill her will to be free, while telling her not to be so smart, we put her down for being so dumb. Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she is. If you don't believe me, take a look at the one you're with. Woman is the slave to the slaves. Yes, she is. If you believe me, you better scream about it. And then it ends off with, we make her paint her face and dance, lots of times, basically. Stirring stuff, you know. Again, whether or not you agree with it or don't agree with it, it's an intelligent person expressing intelligent opinions. And I actually think that this one is also going to get a play in a few minutes when I finish this. Okay, I have Imagine here. Okay, I don't have a complete Imagine. I think, yeah, it came with a postcard and stuff like that. I used to have it, but this one here is a second-hand copy. I'm a bit narked really about that, because I thought I had a complete one, but I obviously don't. It's been a while since I've sort of dug into this. It's buried underneath a whole load of stuff over there. or the box with all these things in is, put it that way. And yeah, lovely album, just not my favourite. Okay, my favourite, as I say, is Walls and Bridges. Right, on to George Harrison now. Okay. This was the last album that George made himself before he died, and Danny Harrison, his son, had to sort of complete it for him, basically, because he was too ill to make a lot of it. But I've put a couple of tracks from here on YouTube. I think I put Brainwashed the song on YouTube, and I think I put I put on my RP8 playing there's a Hawaiian track on here, Marwa Blues. But this brilliant album. Okay, it's perhaps a little over philosophized, but then again, you know, I suppose it's a bit like John, really. You know, George had his own opinions. This time they were kind of, you know, based in Hinduism. And some people might find that a little bit sort of difficult to take. We've got something called P2 Vatican Blues, Last Saturday Night, which is basically about, you know, him because he was brought up a Roman Catholic. And then we've also got yeah, what else here that is, yeah, I mean the song Brainwashed itself, and it ends with a prayer to the Hindu goddess Parvati. Now Parvati is the goddess of healing, okay, as well as being I think in another kind of incarnation she's also like a sort of demoness kind of god or goddess. But yeah, it's so touching. It's so touching to think that this person was on his deathbed and he's singing a song of healing at the end. It's beautiful. Okay, just beautiful. Well worth a listen, well worth it. But as I say, it's a bit hard going. Now, I have got, again, quite a lot of George's stuff on CD. Okay, I've got Cloud 9. That's the one that's got My Mind Set on You on it. And I've got 33 1/3, which hasn't really got anything particularly famous on it, but there you go. On CD, and I've got a couple of others of his on CD. All right, but this one, Dark Horse, okay, this was made around about 1974, I think. And again, you know, for those of you that don't find his religious leanings to be, you know, your cup of tea, your cup of chai, you might want to give this one a miss. But he'd been on tour. He'd been bugged by a sore throat throughout the whole time, basically. So he's not vocally at his best here. Yeah, I mean, apart from, I think Simply Shady is quite good. And it's kind of based on John's song Sexy Sadie. The actual song Dark Horse is fine. Far East Man's quite good, and It Is He, Jai Shri Krishna, is also quite good. This was around about the time when the glam rockers were sort of having all those Christmas hits. Slade with Merry Christmas Everybody, and Wizard with, you know, Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. And George wanted to get in on that action, so he made his own song about New Year. It had a bit of a sort of religious kind of overtone as well, so it came across as a bit preachy, and I suppose that is what I'm getting at. Okay, George, when he's preachy, is not fun. Okay, all right, this is George is my favourite Beatle, and he's my favourite solo Beatle. So that, as criticism of him, is, you know, it's me saying, like, he is my favourite, but he's not perfect. Okay, and this album, again, this has got a song called "Give Me Love, Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth" on it, which is again the standout hit from it, and did very well. It's packaged very nicely here. Okay, but again, a lot of this stuff is extremely preachy. The light that has lighted the world is a bit of a dirge. Who can see it, I think, is a bit of a dirge. The Lord loves the one that loves the Lord. Yeah, it kind of yeah, it's a bit stodgy, this album is, and yeah, you know, for all of George's obvious talent and stuff, this album is just a bit boring. You know, listen to Brainwashed instead. It's much better. This is Wonderwall Music, which I said or I kind of promised at the beginning of this video that there would be something that was interesting in here, and this is Wonderwall Music, and it's, I believe, an original, although maybe not actually, because up here's a telltale sign. It's also available on cassette, and there's a picture of a cassette there with the serial number of it. So perhaps, because cassettes were not common currency in 1967. I believe this came out in 1967. EMI Electrola. I'm trying to find the date on it. Seems to be a German copy. Maybe Andy Hall can cast a wee dram of light on this. Let me have a look on the actual label itself. No. Right. That is not how to treat an album, sorry. Yeah, it's 1968. So cassettes were not common currency. This is actually a pretty well kept album. I've only ever played it once, and that was years and years and years and years ago. I hope that mark, you can't see it on there, but I hope that wasn't one that I've just made. Yeah, but if this was an original, it would, an original first pressing, it would have the sold in the UK text going across the middle here, which it obviously hasn't, so this is a repress. Okay, so yeah, hence the also available on cassette thing. But yeah, this album, Wonderwall Music, was the inspiration behind Noel Gallagher's song Wonderwall, I think. Yeah, so there's that. It's bizarre, this cover is. It's sort of the right way up that way. If you turn it round, it's upside down. There you go. You're getting a lot of decent philosophical stuff from me here. Right, this box set here is George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. Okay. I defy anybody now to try and find a copy of this album in the original box set for under, you know, several £100s. I think it was even re-released a few years ago, but it costs an absolute fortune. Okay, the only way now to really get this album is on CD. Now, there was a version that was released in 2001 or 2002, I believe, with mastering by John Astley. It's got some extra bonus things on it, such as a more modern version of My Sweet Lord. And yeah, it's not bad to listen to, but the original is the best. Okay, George Harrison sort of 30 years after the original thing. So I think it was 2001. I think it was the 30th anniversary edition or something. He actually went back and remixed it with obviously John Astley's mastering as well. He tried to cut down on the wall of sound kind of effect, because he didn't think that in the early 2000s that was a particularly current sound to have. Okay, so yeah, you've got My Sweet Lord 2000 on there, for example, as well, which is, I think it's a lady called Sam Brown. I think she's doing the backing vocals on it. And yeah, a lot of the other songs were slightly remixed as well, but this is the original. Okay, you can get remasters of the original without any sort of fiddle faffle on them as well. Okay, that will release later on. Okay, but as I say, if you try and get a vinyl box set of it, it will cost you hundreds. So I'm very pleased to have this, and I'll just show you one of the records here. Okay, this is it's quite knackered actually. This is side 4, okay, which has got I Dig Love, The Art of Dying, Isn't It a Pity, version 2, and Hear Me Lord. Okay, now again, you see, for some reason, although I suppose George, between this album and the next one, which was Living in the Material World, i.e. this jobby here, there really isn't a huge amount of change in the styles of music, but for some reason it works an awful lot better here, because there are things like the fact that he was hugely influenced by Bob Dylan. Okay, there's a George Harrison Bob Dylan composition on here. Yeah, I'd Have You Anytime. That's the it's the opening number on here. So things like that lifted up. Also, obviously, the song My Sweet Lord is just fantastic. When I put that on, I obviously knew it as a kid, but as an adult, when I bought that previously mentioned remaster of All Things Must Pass, the box set CD thing, put My Sweet Lord on, it was like God coming into the room. It was just uncanny, and that alone makes this album worth listening to all of it. But yeah, there is a lot of boredom on here as well. There's a lot of dirgy stuff. Okay, but having said that, it kind of works. It kind of works because you've got a mixture of stuff. For example, Awaiting on You All is brilliant. The Apple Scruffs, Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, Let It Roll, all of those things there are all just light-hearted and you know, they lift the spirit rather than bog you down. I think there's songs like Isn't It a Pity and Hear Me Lord, which are just, isn't it a pity? And it's just dirge, and you've got this same. If you imagine the chord pattern to I look at you while my guitar gently weeps, and that sort of descending chord pattern, it comes on too many of George's songs. Unfortunately, with that same kind of tempo, you know, if it goes any slower, it's going to go backwards, and you know, it's just overdone. Okay, and where he gets out of that, like for example, Apple Scruffs or the Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, it's much better. The Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp is about a ghost that haunted Friar Park, where George lived, and it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, so this album is well worth it. Okay, if you own no other album by George Harrison or any solo Beatle, in fact, get this one. It really is the bee's knees, okay? And the bad moments, I've made them sound, I've criticised them overly heavily. They're not really all that bad, okay? There are worse. It could be Miley Cyrus, okay? Finally, I have George's concert for Bangladesh. This, you know, before, you know, in the 80s we went benefit gig mad. You know, we had Live Aid, and then we had, you know, Sport Aid, and then we had Ferry Aid, and then we had the Nelson Mandela concert, and, you know, full, you know, the 80s, particularly the latter half, was mental about benefit gigs. But the precursor to all of those is this. Okay, this is the concert for Bangladesh. Okay, this is an original copy. Okay, it has been remastered. I have it on CD as well, in a remastered format, and I believe there might be a DVD available of it as well. I'm not sure, but this has got all of George's pals on it. Okay, so, you know, you've got George's best songs, Here Comes the Sun, Something, My Sweet Lord, Awaiting on You All, and you've got loads of songs from his backing band, and Dylan also gets involved and does a set. This was the first time that Bob Dylan had come after his very ill-fated 1966 tour, where he got pelted at basically every time that an electric guitar played a chord. Then he got booed and, you know, just basically run off stage basically. I actually heard a story that the amount of drugs that Bob Dylan needed to get him, well, I say needed, to get him through, he used to take I think he took a shot of heroin for the solo part, where he was standing there with just him and a guitar and, you know, 10,000 people in the audience, and then it was a speedball of cocaine and a mixture of cocaine and heroin to get him through the electric bit, and, you know, to obviously to sort of keep his nerve up for, you know, the inevitable booing and everything. That it was nothing other than the football hooliganism, because you and I know that if you were to go and put Blonde on, that it's a fantastic album, as is Highway 61 Revisited. You know, absolutely fantastic albums, but you know, and they're electric albums and they're brilliant, but there was a certain sort of keeping up with the Joneses. So once it had been done a few times, it became de rigueur to boo Bob Dylan. And, you know, the reason why I'm sort of digressing that way is because on this album, this is the first time he comes out of hiding to do proper live performances, okay? And it was touch and go whether or not he would even appear, okay? So for that alone, George's bits, and also there's a bloke called Leon someone or other, whose name I've forgotten. I should know it. Let me just see if I can find... Yeah, Leon Russell. Jumping Jack Flash and Youngblood on side 4 takes up virtually the whole of side 4. It's at like 9 or 10 minutes, and it is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So, you know, this album, you know, your homework, students, is to go away and find a copy of this, okay? You may not find an original box set, but they're not that hard to find, okay? This, I don't think, cost me an arm and a leg. And certainly, I didn't pay hundreds of pounds for this one. Again, it was, you know, maybe £30 or something like that I paid for this, but you know, the in recent years prices have absolutely soared for this one. But get yourself copies of these. Okay, go and listen to Chaos and Creation in the Backyard and Tug of War by Paul McCartney. Go and listen to Walls and Bridges and Mind Games. Oops, sorry, I've just dropped an album there. I'm saying sorry to myself there, because I do. And yeah, go and play them. Okay, and Paul Ringo. I used to have an album by Ringo. It was on the MFP label. And it was called Blast from Your Past. And yes, I enjoyed it. But now, you know, in my collection now, I have not a diddly squat. Not a CD, not an 8-track cartridge, not a cassette of poor Ringo, okay? Although Ringo does pop up as guests on a lot of these albums. Ringo is playing the drums throughout the concert for Bangladesh, for example. You know, he does some drums on the Pipes of Peace album and on the Tug of War album. I think Pipes of Peace and Tug of War might have actually been released or recorded pretty much at the same time as one another, and then one was released a bit later. But most of the stuff for Pipes of Peace, I think, was done during the Tug of War sessions. So yeah, Ringo was on that. George played on John's albums, quite a lot of John's albums in fact, and where George doesn't play on John's albums, it was like, you know, to whatever guitarist that he was using, he was saying, do it like George. And the same with the drumming, do it like Ringo. This is how Ringo would have done it, do it like that. So yeah, this is where I will finish this video now, and yeah, I hope that I've enlightened you. Yeah, as I said, I've not got the most extensive solo collection, and yeah, fair enough, a load of it's on CD as well. One day I'll go through my CDs with you. That'll be thrilling, won't it? But yeah, okay, bye world, and I'll see you soon. Okay.